Welcome back, guys. This week we're going to America's largest tailgate party. I'm talking long nights, bar fights, and open mics. I'm talking 3 chords and a dream, a driver's license for Uber if that dream fails. I'm talking the hottest entertainment spot in the South. We're going to Nashville, home of the Hot Chicken Sandwich. Now, Hot Chicken Sandwich came about because a guy was out too late with the boys. His wife wanted to teach him a little something. Don't stay out too late, come back to me, baby. I'm gonna make it a little hot for you. Threw a bunch of cayenne in that oil, made the chicken in it. Turns out, he loved it, and we all do now. It's the hottest thing in the country when it comes to chicken sandwiches. What's not so hot? Murder, robbery, getting around, being an asshole. We're gonna talk about a guy who did all of that. We're talking about Paul Dennis Reid Jr., convicted serial killer and total piece of shit. This is Crime Time, and this is the case of Paul Dennis Reid Jr. All right, so this story this week starts off in 1957, Texas. A man by the name of Paul Reid Sr. and a lady Joni have a son named Paul Reid and a daughter. Now, everything's going peachy keen, everything seems awesome, but 4 years after they have the kid, they decide that it's not working out, this is hot trash, we're going to get a divorce. So they get a divorce, and like the times back in the day, you know, most of the time, the kids go live with the mom and the dad disappears forever. So they go ahead and move in with Joni's mother, you know, and they're having a good old time. They're still in Texas, and Paul starts acting out a little bit, acting a little strange, some would say. Violent even. Violent to the point that at 4 years of age, this guy tried to murder his own fucking grandma. Now, this goes on for a little bit, which is completely batshit, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel. They go to their priest, they're looking around, they can't figure this out. So at 8 years old, they decide, we can't do this. Paul, you gotta go. So he's gotta go to a boys' home, and that just makes everything infinitely worse. We're talking depression, beatings, we're talking all this wild stuff to where, you know, kids shouldn't have to endure that. I'm not saying that made him worse, but I have an inkling. Anyways, he's doing that for a couple of years, and then he finally gets out. And when he gets out, he's a troubled youth, turns to drugs and alcohol. Develops a huge rap sheet. We're talking theft, stolen property, destruction of property, robbery, incredible things that you shouldn't be doing as a child. But, I mean, this was all mere insignificant instances compared to what he was going to do later in life. I'll tell you that right now. All right, now traditionally, guys, I do know that we would use buttermilk, but my store had no buttermilk anywhere in town. I don't know what's going on. The craze must have hit everywhere. So we're just gonna do a simple brine. And again, buttermilk, I get it, but we're gonna work with what we can. Do a simple brine. And you know, we're gonna get back to this right now. So as I was saying, it got much worse because in 1984, Paul was caught committing robbery and carjackings, and he was sentenced to a little bit of jail time. And by a little bit, I mean 7 years. Now in jail, he's sitting there and he says he knows how to finally get away with the perfect crimes. You know what you got to do? You got to dress clean cut. You got to have your hair cut, tie, nice clothes, no dirt, and oh yeah, don't leave any witnesses. Which now we're escalating a little bit, if anyone knows. We're escalating. So as we're doing this, he is in jail, and he's assaulting guards. He's hurting other inmates. He's attacked physicians. I mean, just all around a real bad fucking guy, real bad prisoner. No one likes this guy. So much so that when the first time they had talked about putting him on parole, the psychologist had told the judge they thought it was a terrible idea, because they thought he was too dangerous to be reintegrated back into society. Well, the judge didn't heed the advice and they let him out. Now, upon letting him out, he decides that I have all the talent in the world as a country singer. Matter of fact, he believed he sounded like Hank Williams Jr. So he was going to take those talents and he was going to go ahead and he was going to try to find a way to get to Nashville. So first he goes and he lives with his sister in Indiana. Well, short-lived because he was accused of molesting her daughter. Yeah, her daughter, his niece. Also accused of molesting his girlfriend at the time's daughter. So real piece of shit this guy is, right? Keep your hands off the kids, Epstein. So anyway, he finally gets down to Nashville. He's super excited. Really starting to try out this country music thing. He's going to be a star. Well, unfortunately for him, he's not. Doesn't pick up, and he just sits there all docile, doing nothing for roughly 7 years. And he decides that I can't do this anymore. We got to take it up a notch. I need to make more money. So, as they say, old habits, they die hard. He goes back to crime, committing robberies, small ones at first, but that's not enough of a score. So he decides to do what he was doing before and exactly what he went to jail for. Start hitting those fast food restaurants. All right, so resorting to the only thing he knew, he decides that he's going to go ahead and start robbery again. We're talking February 16th, 1997, at Captain D's, right outside of Nashville. He decides that he's going to wait till close to closing time. And at that time, he goes ahead and he forces Sarah Jackson and Steve Hampton, the closer and the closing manager. He forces them into the back of the McDonald's. Upon doing so, he puts them down, face down, has them lying there. Tiny whisk. Never leave home without it, right? Anyway, you should, fuck off, Doug. But he forces them down on the ground. And after doing that, he raises the cash register and decides that he can't leave any witnesses because he doesn't want to go back to jail. So execution style, he shoots them both in the back of the head with a .22 caliber pistol and makes off. They're discovered the next day at opening, and yeah. So that happens. We're going to wait a little bit, and literally just a little bit, because this guy couldn't even wait a month before he decides that Captain D's wasn't enough. He needs to go hit somewhere else. So, upon discovering that there's another place, a McDonald's closing, right down the street, he's going to go ahead and hit them. This time, there's too many people, though. There is Andrea Brown. There is Ronaldo Santiago, Robert Solo, and Jose Gonzalez. So Andrea, Ronaldo, and Robert, they're all shot. Execution style, right in the back of the head. Unfortunately for Jose, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, Paul ran out of bullets. So he proceeds to go ahead and stab Jose 17 times. Now, after doing that, he thinks he's all clear. He leaves the McDonald's, Paul scot-free. Well, despite 17 possibly mortal wounds, crazy amount of blood loss, Jose is a motherfucking gangster survivor, all right? He does not let Paul kill him. He does survive. Paul does not know this at all, but Jose survives. And so, again, this asshole, no skill sets, doesn't want to work, just wants all this thievery and stealing to make his way. So a month to the day, literally to the day. Last one was March 23rd. This is April 23rd, 1997. He approaches a Baskin Robbins that is being worked on by two young women. One, Michelle Mace, and one, Angela Holmes. But this time, Paul decides that he's not going to murder them at the scene. He's going to commit the robbery, and now we're going to take it up a notch. We're going to kidnap these women. He decides that he's going to take them, and he forces them into his pickup truck, and he drives miles away to a state park. Now, that state park is Cave State Park, and no one hears from the women for the rest of that day for an obvious reason. And unfortunately, they are discovered at Cave State Park The very next day, both of their throats were slashed. So now we're talking 2 bodies at Captain D's, 3 bodies, 1 survivor at McDonald's, and lastly, tragically, 2 bodies, Cave State Park, abducted from Baskin Robbins. 7 murders in total. Well, Reid sits there and he thinks he's going to get away with everything because he always thinks he knows what the fuck he's doing better than everybody else, and he's got this awkward sense of entitlement, hence why he couldn't get a job, or probably for that matter, sing a fucking lick of music well. And when he decided that he was going to rob Captain D's, he ran the pockets of Steve Hampton. Well, in Steve Hampton's pockets, there was a video rental card. The video rental card, that's of no interest to Paul. He didn't really need it. Who the fuck goes to a Blockbuster after a murder? Well, I could see this guy doing that. Anyway, as he's running through the pockets, convicted felon, mind you, 1984, he went to jail, right? We remember this? He left a fingerprint, this guy. He left a fingerprint right on this video rental card. So right then and there, the police had their suspect. They just couldn't find him at first. Unfortunately, more crimes would happen afterwards. And he would end up at McDonald's. Well, as I said before, he ran out of bullets after shooting the first 3 victims. It came down to Jose Gonzalez. He had to stab him. Jose survived. And in his survival agreed that he would, identify Paul as the perpetrator. So the police had a fingerprint from the first crime scene. They then had eyewitness testimony from Gonzalez. And thirdly, after kidnapping the 2 ladies from Baskin Robbins, Paul needed to get gas. Well, he got gas in the immediate vicinity of where their bodies were later then found. An overwhelming amount of evidence is now mounting on this guy, and eventually they are able to finally make an arrest. And so they make this arrest, and they've got him dead to rights. Let's just be real. And so after that, he is now facing numerous charges stemming from kidnapping, robbery, assaulting a minor, attempted murder, and 7 counts of first-degree murder. Later on, they run the trial. He likes to say, oh, no, I'm not a bad guy. I'm just crazy. The government experimented on me. There's a scientific technologies program. I'm a psycho. Well, he was deemed, as most, by 2 psychologists, that you're not that crazy. You're just an asshole. And after a couple of hours of deliberation, the jurors then found him guilty on all counts, including 7 counts of first-degree murder, where, if anyone knows, in the state of Texas, and then Nashville, and Illinois, anywhere you committed a crime, they all have the death penalty. And in Nashville, they decided, fuck you, sir. You get to die. And he's convicted of all 7 counts and is sentenced to death. Convicted on 7 counts of capital murder. Due to our justice system, Paul gets to go ahead and appeal, which he's going to. And so Paul appeals, and he hits all the same regular notes: bad representation, that there was evidence that shouldn't have been introduced, biased jury, the setting's not good, it should have been in a different venue, and even as far as to, again, quote, that he was a crazy person. His sister also took his side, saying, hey, my brother is insane. And so they do another evaluation. And again, they find out, no, he's not insane. He's just an asshole. And in learning all that, They uphold all decisions to follow through with his execution, and they go further as to say, you've exhausted all your appeals. Now is the time for you to wait for your day of judgment. For when we're gonna pull that fucking lever and we're gonna make you hotter than these goddamn sandwiches. Fortunately for us, Paul would not meet his maker by the means of the state. After being a model prisoner for most of the time, nothing short of, nothing crazy, nothing remarkable, November 1st of 2013, Paul is rushed to the infirmary and later the actual Nashville General Hospital because of complications in his heart due to pneumonia. And later is subsequently going to die because of those, which I think he got off a little fucking light, if you ask me. But at least we know that piece of shit isn't getting anything more than eaten by worms. Oh, there we go. Good pat. I think we did pretty good, guys. What would you say? Pretty delicious. It's juicy. It's crispy. Let's take a bite. Bro. I know a lot of people are going to say, use breast. You can use breast if you want, but the flavor that comes from the thighs is incredible. The double flour, again, I do agree the buttermilk would have made a little bit of a difference, but we don't have to go that far. And those pickles really offset and provide this freshness and this crunch to this sandwich. And you know what? We'll take one more. We'll just take one more. Nashville, you got one. You guys got one. That's all she wrote for that guy. That's the end of Paul Dennis Reid Jr. Total piece of shit, total loser. Went to Nashville, had a dream, should have just banked on being an Uber driver. And yeah, thanks for stopping in, guys. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for checking it out. Like every other YouTuber, every other video you see on here, hit the notification, like, subscribe, tell your friends. We appreciate you. This has been Crying and Dying. Stay safe.